What's up, Kidsway, and welcome back to another Sunday of Church Online. We're coming at you in week number 2 of our series called Shout Out, and we are going in. We're shouting out, we're giving thanks, and we're trying our best to have gratitude. And it's a little bit different of a word. Maybe you've never heard of gratitude. Maybe you know what gratitude is, but the way that we're thinking about gratitude is just like this. Check it out. Gratitude is letting others know you see how they've helped you. You see, gratitude is taking thank you and taking it just a step further. You're letting others know how they've helped you. And we're going to continue to talk about that word throughout this entire series, all month long. And as a matter of fact, we're going to be talking about King David in just a little bit and how he was so thankful that he couldn't stop dancing. So we'll get to that story in just a little bit, in just a couple of minutes as a matter of fact. But I want to go over a couple other things with you real fast. And the first thing is our big answer. If you've been here, then you know that each week we have a brand new big answer. And if you're new with us, then I got to tell you what the big answer is. Our big answer is the answer to the big question. Because let's face it, at the end of the day, once you leave church or once you're done watching here, somebody in your house, somebody in your family, somebody that you know usually asks you, hey, what did you learn? What did you learn in church today? Hey, after this video, you might even ask yourself, what did I learn again? Our big answer sums up the lesson perfectly. And today's big answer says this: celebrate what God has done. Can you guys say that with me? Say, celebrate what God has done. One more time. Say, celebrate what God has done. That's right, celebrate what he has done. And we're going to get into how we can focus on that and do just that. Celebrate. When we celebrate, it changes our mindset. It fixes our thoughts on what God has done and how amazing he is. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Just like we said a little earlier, we're going to talk about King David, how he celebrated, how he gave thanks, how he was gracious in a really, really important time. And the last thing I want to go over with you before we move on is our memory verse. Do any of you guys remember where it was from? We talked about it last week. It's in a book in the Old Testament. It starts with a P. It's a real short word. Psalm. That's right. It's in the book of Psalm, and it's in chapter 136. Yeah, Psalms has a lot of chapters in it, but it's in chapter 136, verse number 1. And it says this. It says, give thanks to the Lord because he is good. His faithful love continues forever. Psalm 136, verse 1. Can you guys say that with me? Say, give thanks to the Lord because he is good. His faithful love continues forever. Psalm 136, 1. You guys are getting it. You're doing so great. And hey, just like I said, King David celebrated what God had done by dancing. He couldn't contain himself. And we're going to do that right now. We're going to get ready. We're going to focus in on God by singing and dancing to a couple of our favorite songs here in Kidsway. So stand up to your feet. Let's do a couple of stretches and let's get ready for a good time. Are you ready? Here we go!
Say his name, watch the darkness slip away. Put your power on display. Say goodbye to fear and shame. We won't stop coming after you. We won't move until you move. Come and do what only you can do. Come and do what only you can do. We won't stop coming after you. We won't move until you move. Come and do what only you can do. Come and do what only you can do. to count the stars. Nothing could compare to who you are. With you, everything is brought to light. With you, everything comes back to life. You died to make me whole. I want the world to know. With you, nothing is impossible. You called my name and told these bones to rise. And with the breath you brought me back to life. I could try and do it my own way. Jesus, I know only you can save. With you, everything is brought to light. With you, everything comes back to life. You died to make me whole. I want the world to know. With you, nothing is impossible. Nothing is impossible. When the world is upside down, when I can't find solid ground, you turn it all around. Nothing is impossible. When I feel like I'm alone, when I'm far away from home, I know that I'm your own. Nothing is impossible. When my world is upside down, when I can't find solid ground, you turn it all around. Nothing is impossible. When I feel like I'm alone, when I'm far away from home, I know that I'm your own. Nothing is impossible. With you, everything is brought to light. With you, everything comes back to life. You died to make me whole. I want the world to know. With you, nothing is impossible. Nothing is impossible. With you, nothing is impossible. You died to make me whole. I want the world to know. With you, nothing is impossible.
The Bible. It's 66 books of history, stories, letters, and poetry that fit together to form God's one big story. The epic adventure of how He created us and loves us so much that He made a way to rescue us. As we travel through the Bible, from Genesis to Revelation, we discover people who met God and found their lives changed forever. And now for an amazing story, inspired by the book of 2 Samuel, chapter 6, verses 12 through 22.
Hey Kidsway, welcome back. And hey, dancing is a great part of church. It's a way that we praise God, and it's a way that we celebrate. As a matter of fact, that's what our big answer says. Celebrate what God has done. Can you guys say that with me? Say, celebrate what God has done. God has done amazing things, and we're getting ready to take a look at a story in the Bible from King David. And you can find this story if you want to follow along. We're going to be in the book of 2 Samuel, 2 Samuel chapter 6 rather, is kind of where we're going to be really focusing in on today. But in this book, in this time, where we pick up in this story, we see God's people, and they are at war. And they've been at war for a really long time. They've been fighting and going through battles and swinging swords and shooting arrows and giving war cries. It was a crazy time. Could you imagine what that might have looked like? Beep, beep. Yeah, I'm kind of feeling it. Like I said, we're going in today, so I might be dancing at random times. You can feel welcome to dance with me, but if you see me dancing, it's just because I'm super excited and I'm pumped. I'm ready to shout out and have a good time. But let's get back to the Bible story. So we have the Israelites, God's people, at war, and finally they start doing okay, and David becomes king. But when he became king, he realized something was missing. The ark was missing, and I'm not talking about like Noah's ark, right? Like that huge boat early on in the Bible where we hear about Noah and the flood. That's not the same ark that I'm talking about. This ark, think about a big wooden box, like a big, beautiful wooden chest, and it carried the 10 Commandments in it. But it also, the Bible says that God's presence was in the ark and would carry God's presence in a very special way. And this is the ark that David noticed was missing. Well, you see, what happened was that when they were at war with the Philistines had captured the ark and took it back. But David wanted the ark back. And thankfully enough, they went to war and they got it back. They were able to capture the ark and return it back. And David wanted the ark in Jerusalem. He wanted it back in the capital city so that way when people saw it, they could sing and dance and celebrate God's presence right there. Beep, beep. So anyways, after the ark was recaptured, David had heard that it was being kept at a guy's house, and the guy's name was Obed-Edom. And for a short time after it was recaptured, just a couple of months, this gentleman had the ark at his house on his property. And because he had the ark, remember, it carried with it God's presence. Him and his entire household, his entire property, all of his land was blessed because God's presence was there with them. But David, he wanted this ark and he wanted it for everybody to see, so he wanted to make it available to all. So David, where he was at in the town, in the capital, he built up a huge tent, a place where the ark could stay. And David went and gathered a bunch of men, and they went on and they marched to where the ark was being kept. Beep, beep. So David and the men that he was with finally reached the home of Obed-Edom. This is the place where the ark was being kept. They took very, very good and great care when they were lifting and picking up the ark. They used poles to pick it up, just like God had told them to. And you see, David was so thankful. He was so happy that whenever this started to happen, you could see it on his face. You could see it in the way that he was walking, in the way that he was carrying himself. And as a matter of fact, David, after only taking 6 steps, couldn't contain his gratitude anymore. He couldn't contain his thankfulness anymore. He had to celebrate. So he stopped everybody right in their tracks, and he made a sacrifice to God. And then he started to celebrate by dancing. As a matter of fact, in 2 Samuel chapter 6, verse 14, it says that David danced in front of the Lord with all of his might. Beep, beep. That was awesome. But David wasn't the only one that was celebrating, because other people wanted to join in. They blew trumpets. They started that celebration. They were going nuts. Everybody was so happy and so thankful. I'd imagine that it looked something like this. Beep, beep. How amazing is that? Could you imagine how much fun that would be? Dancing with the presence of the Lord, dancing and celebrating with all of your friends. That must have been such a great time. But despite all the dancing and celebrating, David and everybody that was with him finally made it back to the city. And everybody was still dancing and celebrating and having a good time. But there was one person, when she saw what was going on, wasn't so happy. And it was actually David's wife. Her name was Michal. And I might be saying that wrong, but this is how I think it's pronounced. Her name was Michal. And she saw David dancing and what he was wearing. And she wasn't too crazy about it because David was just wearing a simple apron. You know, David is a king, and she was used to seeing him in a nice robe with a fancy royal garments and all these things, and he looked different than what she was used to, and she thought that he looked absolutely ridiculous. But guess what? Do you think David stopped? Not a chance. David didn't stop at all. As a matter of fact, he continued to dance. Beep, beep. So eventually, all of the celebrating, all of the dancing comes to an end. And David decides that he's going to go home and bless his entire family. So David gets home, and remember, his wife really isn't too happy with him because she thinks that he kind of looked a little ridiculous. And so when he got home, I picture her with her hands on her hips and maybe like a pouty face with her lips tucked like this. That's kind of how I picture her being whenever David got to the house. And David walks into their home, and she greets him with the saying, and she says, "You really are the king of Israel. You really made yourself look like a fool today, haven't you?" And she said this with disgust, and David's response was absolutely perfect. And this is where I want you guys to kind of tune in, because you see, David wasn't dancing for anybody else. David was dancing to celebrate and honor the Lord. As a matter of fact, the Bible even says that in 2 Samuel chapter 6. It says, "I celebrated to honor the Lord." You see, do you remember David's wife's name? Her name was Malka. And I think that she was really concerned with the way that David looked. But David didn't care how he looked. David said, "I was dancing and I was doing the things I was doing. I was celebrating the way I was celebrating to bring honor to the Lord." And that's what I think we need to take away from this Bible story today, is because I think oftentimes, I know it happens for me, and I know it's probably true for most of us, is that a lot of times we can think that we may look silly if we raise our hands in worship, or that we might not look cool if we decide to clap and sing or dance in the midst of worship. But I think if we truly are celebrating what God has done, if we're truly trying to bring honor to the Lord, we have to focus on that. We have to focus on bringing honor to Him. We can't be focused on what other people might think about us, because let's be real, people are always going to think silly things about us, and kind of no matter what's going on, chances are they're going to think silly things of us no matter what. But if we focus on God, if we focus on bringing honor to Him, that's when we truly are able to celebrate what God has done. So I challenge you right now in this moment to celebrate and honor God, because we're getting ready to sing a song, and it's a fun song. It's one of my favorites. But I want you, throughout this song, I want you to clap to the beat. I want you to sing the words out, and I want you to lift your hands in worship. Regardless of who's in the room with you, focus on God. Honor Him in this moment, and let's celebrate His name with this time in worship. Let's go.
Have you ever seen the wonder in the glimmer of first sight? As the eyes begin to open and the blindness meets the light. If you have soul, say, "I see the world in light. I see the world in wonder. I see the world in light. Blessed in living color, I see the world your way, and I'm walking in the light." Have you ever seen the wonder in the earth
second life. Having come out of the waters with your left behind. If your house so sick, I see the world in light. I see the world in wonder. I see the world in light. Burst in a living color. I see the world your way. And I'm walking in the light. I see the world in grace. I see the world in gospel. I see the world your way. And I'm walking in the light. I'm walking in the wonder. You're the wonder in the wild. To the wilderness to wonder. Who I see the world in love. I see the world in freedom. I see the Jesus way. You're the wonder in the wild. I see the world your way, and I'm not afraid to follow. I see the world your way, and I'm not ashamed to say so. I see the Jesus way, and I'm walking in the light. I see the world in light. I see the world in wonder. I see the world in life, bursting in living color. I see the world your way, and I'm walking in the light. Oh, I see the world in grace. I see the world in gospel. I see the world your way, and I'm walking in the light. I'm walking in the wonder. You're the wonder in the wild. To the wilderness to wonder. Oh, I see the world in love. I see the world in freedom. I see the Jesus way. You're the wonder in the wild. To the wilderness to wonder. You're the wonder in the wild. To the wilderness to wonder.
You see, David's wife was concerned with what other people might think about her. But for David, it was simple. David acted the way that he did. David celebrated and danced the way that he did because he wanted to honor God, because he wanted to celebrate what he had done for him. David couldn't contain himself, and he wasn't worried about what anybody else would think. I want to tell you today that God has created you to be who you are. Please don't be ashamed of who you are, regardless of what anybody might think or regardless of what anybody might say to you. God created you on purpose to be who you are, to be the way that you are. You got created on purpose, and there's no one else like you. And this world, needs you to be you. And we can celebrate that fact. We can celebrate that God has created us to be ourselves. We can celebrate what God has done. And hey, if you were with us last week, we threw out a challenge to you. And I'm going to throw out a very similar challenge to you this week. Maybe you were here last week, maybe you weren't. But we challenged you last week to write down something that you were thankful for, so that when times get tough or when we get busy, no matter what, we always had this reminder of something that we can be thankful for. And this week, I'm going to give you the same exact challenge, except this time, I want you to write down something that you could celebrate God for. Maybe it was a time that you were thankful. Maybe it's another thing that you're thankful for. Maybe it was a time that God gave you some wisdom. Maybe it was a time that God positioned you in a way to help a friend. Maybe you were a friend that got helped in a time. Whatever that thing might be, maybe it was an answered prayer. Whatever that thing might be, write down something that you're thankful for or something that you can celebrate that God has done for you. Take some time right after you get done watching this. And if you want something neat to write it on our website, bridgeway.tv, you can go to the kids page, or you can type in the browser up top, bridgeway.tv/family/kids. Scroll all the way down to the elementary portion of that page, and there's some clickable links right there. You can download the at-home activities page, and they have some neat little cutouts that are like megaphones that you can shout out to the Lord, this reminder of why you're thankful, or this reminder of why you're celebrating God. But I challenge you today to take some time, right after this video, to think and write down at least one thing that you can be thankful for, or one thing that you can celebrate God for. Please take some time to do that. Trust me, it can help you out in a really tough time. And take that and put it somewhere that you always see it. Somewhere in your room, put it on the bathroom mirror, put it in your parents' cars if they'll let you, carry it with you in your backpack, put it in one of your folders, put it somewhere where you always see it so that you can always have a reminder of why you can be thankful to God. So Kidsway, would you say our big answer with me one more time? Say, you can celebrate what God has done. I think I actually added some parts to it. Just say, celebrate what God has done. One more time. Say, celebrate what God has done. And hey, just in case you're looking for some scriptures to back up what we're talking about today, look to Psalm chapter 136, verse 1. That's our memory verse. Do you remember what it says? It says, give thanks to the Lord because he is good. His faithful love continues forever. Psalm 136, 1. Sometimes it just takes a little bit extra for us to dig deeper, to pay closer attention, to see those things that we can be thankful for and we can have gratitude for. So, Kidsway Studio, I hope that you guys had a great time today. I had a blast up here dancing and singing and celebrating with you, and I hope and pray that you guys will see us right back here next week for week number 3 of our series called Shout Out. Until then, stay safe, be good, and we'll catch you guys next time. Bye. Hey Nick, who created the round table?
I don't know.
Circumference. Have you ever tried to write with a pencil that doesn't have lead? It's pointless. Hey Nick, what's an astronaut's favorite part on a computer?
I don't know.
The space bar. Ayo! Hey, did you hear about the police officers who had the tires stole off of their cars?
What?
Yeah, they're working tirelessly to find them. Hey, what did the pirate say when you asked him how old he was?
I don't know.
He said, "I matey."